What's good, my beautiful babies? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. If you're a Braves fan, you have no energy today. That's why I am here to bring it to you. Rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Always do appreciate you making time for us. We will get right into it momentarily, but do want to let you know what is coming up on the show today. We've got Cole Bryson coming up in the next segment to update you on all that's going on in the high school scene. What we'll be saying on Monday, we'll get to at 3:40 p.m. today. We've got Brent Beard coming up at 4 o'clock p.m. We've got Jack Stern on the Carolina Panthers coming up at 4:40 p.m. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got Wise Guys Wisdom, and we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. All sorts of fired up to have you guys with us on a Friday edition of the show. Get your crazy fingers ready to make some predictions. Make sure that if you haven't done so already, your upset pick is in by the end of the show today. We want you on that wall. We need you on that wall. We will be posting the upset pick standings as well to Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you guys check us out there. Here's how you can be a part of the show. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. And the MadWorldAttractions.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. All right, let us open where else with this. It takes something massive for us to open with anything other than college football on a college football Friday here in a college football market, right? It's one of the major reasons why I think baseball should make sweeping changes that get them the hell out of the way of football season. All right? You know, I heard an announcer say something the other day, and remember the Braves, out of 36 innings, the Braves were dominated in 33 of the 36 innings in this series, right? They were halfway decent in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning of Game 2, and they've got their ass kicked the rest of the series. I heard an announcer say in advance of Game 3 that Castellanos' hit that Michael Harris snagged on the warning track of Game 2 may have been out if it was the summertime. And I said, what? And so anyway, I got talking to my wife about that, and happy anniversary, sweetheart. My wife, I like you very much. High five. I love her. I love her to Reese's.
By the way, I'm going to start playing that every single time you talk about your wife.
My wife?
From now on.
My wife.
I love it.
Because you talk about your wife a lot.
I love it. I love it.
A lot.
And I love that sound effect. So please keep it up. I love it. Crazy. So anyway, I was talking to Angela about it, and she started looking it up, and she found that the baseball can travel 3% farther in the summer than it does in the fall. And, it's because of the atmospheric conditions, bringing the ball down, et cetera, right? And so that is very much the case, okay? So the atmospheric conditions can bring the ball down 3%, and if that game had been played in summer, that last hit by Castellanos in Game 2 may have been a home run, and maybe Philadelphia sweeps the Braves. They don't win in 4. And it just goes to show you, folks, the variability of all the things at play here in this series, right? That all the things that culminated in the results being what they are. So before we get to the overarching points, let me hear that one more time, Diesel. She's beautiful, isn't she?
I'm not going to play it for you because you want it.
Happy anniversary, sweetheart. Happy anniversary. The Philadelphia Phillies absolutely opened a can on the Atlanta Braves. If you are an Atlanta Braves fan, all right, you should be paying the Philadelphia Phillies rent because they own you.
You can't keep getting away with it.
Hey, at least you guys have that 40-70 thing, right? Whatever the hell that is. At least you've got that going for you. But, Philadelphia owns you. And it's embarrassing, right? Now, there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts about that and what ifs and et cetera, right? The Atlanta Braves were 14 games better than the Philadelphia Phillies in the regular season. So what happened? What are your theories? I welcome them. Guys, this is a segment now. This is going to be a segment tomorrow on CBS Sports Radio. How did we get here with the Atlanta Braves? I don't want to hear something that doesn't make any sense, like the bats just went cold. That's a lazy take. The bats just went cold. What does that even mean? Did the bats go cold because they rested for 5 days? What would the odds be that every bat gets cold at the same time that isn't named Austin Riley? How did we get here, right? Because now an inferior team, the Philadelphia Phillies, has punked you 2 series in a row. 2 series in a row, they've punked you. All right? Now, last year, in 2 games in Philadelphia, this vaunted Atlanta offense produced 4 runs in 2 games in Philadelphia. This year, this vaunted Atlanta Braves offense in 2 games produced 3 runs in Philadelphia. Simply put, the 40-year-old virgin scores more, and exactly in 3 minutes, I'm going to tell you why I'm actually happy that the results ended up the way that they did. But I got a lot of people on social media calling me a Braves fan today because I've sent out the following. Baseball is the sport that does the worst job crowning the best team. The greater the sample size, the more accurate the results. It's called Research 101. What's more accurate, a 162-game sample size or a 3-game sample size? You know the answer to that, right? Research tells you that. The greater the sample size, the more accurate the result. You know that the Braves are a better team than the Phillies. You know that. The data has proven that out. But when it mattered the most, Philadelphia was a better team than you. And so what we've got is a situation where there are too many regular season games, too few games in the postseason, and earning a bye is the kiss of death. Well, Mark Ryan, what about Houston? They earned a bye and they're still alive. Yeah, congratulations. You have a system that has resulted in 3 out of the 4 best teams in the league gone, okay, in their first series played. Now, Philadelphia did absolutely nothing wrong here. Philadelphia played by the rules. Philadelphia opened a can. Philadelphia rightfully is moving on to the NLCS. And I appreciate greatly the class in which certain members of the Braves are showing. Brian Snitker, the manager, saying, yeah, I don't think the bye affected Houston. They're moving on. That's a class thing to say. Clemson's own Spencer Strider said the following: the people trying to use the playoff format to make an excuse for the results they don't like are not comfortable confronting the real issue.
That's asinine and silly. Asinine, silly, and stupid.
You're in control of your focus, your competitiveness, your energy. If having 5 days means you can't make the adjustment, you have nobody to blame but yourself.
Oh, that's a shame.
I really do appreciate, all right, the Braves and some of the members of that team really having class, having the class to say that, okay? But you can't hide from the fact that 3 of the 4 best teams in the sport didn't make it out of a round that they were seriously favored in. And I want to give you guys some numbers here, okay? Underdogs have won 13 out of 22 MLB playoff games to date. Now, 13 out of 22 is about 60%. Do you know what the rate of underdog wins are, generally speaking, in sports? You know what the percentage time an underdog wins? About 26%, or 1 in 4. Baseball has a situation right now where that's happening at more than double the rate. And, it's classy for Snitker and Strider to say, hey, we still should have been ready. Still should have been able to beat them. You should have been. But the data is telling you there's a problem here. Now, is the problem that they had 5 days off? Is the problem maybe that they haven't played any meaningful baseball literally in months? And just like playing a game, a simulated game against the Braves minor league team isn't going to get them ready. The Braves haven't played meaningful baseball in months. The Dodgers haven't played meaningful baseball in months, right? Meanwhile, Houston, the one team out of the 4 best in baseball that is still alive, was fighting, scratching, clawing for its playoff lives right until the very end. To me, there's something to that, right? They got the bye at the very end of the season, but they were playing for their playoff lives, for their very lives at the very end of the season. So I shared with you in a few minutes, I was going to tell you why I'm happy that it ended this way. And I am. And you guys know that I owe you, one of the things I owe you is to be honest with you, okay? And to work as hard as I can on the show. But I'm going to be honest with you here. I don't like covering this. I don't enjoy it. So I wanted it to be done, okay? I'm going to be as honest with you as I possibly can be about that. I was rooting for Philadelphia. I wanted Philadelphia to win. And I wanted Philadelphia to win because I don't really like baseball anymore. I don't like covering it. And the longer that Atlanta was in the series and alive, Diesel, the more I have to do something I don't want to do. Could I be any more honest with you than that?
Have you seen the T-shirts that the Phillies made for their post-game celebration? It's a Philadelphia Phillies blue T-shirt with the red font with a little white outline. On the front, it says, "Attaboy Harper." And on the back, it says, in quotes, "He wasn't supposed to hear that." Oh, I love the city of Philadelphia. I mean, I hate the city of Philadelphia too, but I love you guys.
They're going to let you have it, man.
It's great.
Like they're going to let you have it. They're going to let you have it. Guys, I wasn't looking for, I was like, oh gosh. You remember I came out with that stat, which is accurate, by the way, that to win the World Series, the teams that do average more than 5 runs a game scored, have a team ERA under 4 runs a game. I was trying to find a stat that showed that the Braves couldn't win the World Series. They could. You can overcome that stat. But statistically speaking, the teams that win the World Series, right, score more than 5 runs a game and give up less than 4 team ERA was. The Braves didn't do that. That's why the Braves lost. I found the golden ticket there. Okay? I came out with the graph. I came out with it last week, but it was all because I wanted the Braves to be eliminated so I didn't have to talk about it. Okay? Because if they kept going, I still have to talk about it. And I kind of broke up with baseball about 10 years ago. Okay? That's just being totally honest with you. Now, maybe this isn't a smart thing for me to do. I don't think I'm particularly going to lose many of you, okay? Because most of you want us to be talking football anyway. But the reality is, like, I have bosses that are huge baseball fans. Many of you guys are huge baseball fans. And the changes, I think, help to a degree. But baseball's going to have to do a hell of a lot more to get me back, okay? Being totally honest with you guys, the entirety of this season, I watched not a single game from first pitch to final out. Not a single game. The entire season until the postseason. Now, I would flip on for an inning or two here and there. I set a goal when the Braves were playing. I would try to watch an inning or two. And then if I couldn't do that, I was able to watch, I found a file on MLB.com, which let me kind of watch games and fast forward. And I did a lot of that just so I could have a clue. Okay. But I wanted the Braves to lose, so I didn't have to talk about it anymore. Okay. And I got my wish. I got my wish. It's not, I don't know. Baseball hasn't gotten me back. And you guys are witnessing now the silliness and the randomness of this sport you love. I mean, what would be the equivalent, Diesel, of what the Braves fans have invested here? I mean, is the equivalent as an analogy, you on an old school computer, You wrote a 10-page paper and the power went out and you lost every single second that you worked on it.
That's like that's the final scene to PCU when he's running through the computer lab and he kicks out the main power cord and all these grad students working on their theses all lost them.
You guys invested 6 months for 5 days. I mean, that's got to suck. That's got to be brutal. And, you're not pleading for change because you lost. You're pleading for change because you realize just the sheer randomness of what's going on here, right? It's totally random. You throw a bunch of names in the blender, you see which one the blender spits out. Hey, what do you know? We got a NLCS of Arizona and Philadelphia, but these weren't the very best teams over a large sample size. Oh, well, it's what we got. Please learn from this experience and do not spend 6 months of your time invested. The next time the Braves finish with the best record in the NL, tell yourselves you've been here before and enter cautiously the next time around. Please. Okay? This was a very, very, very valuable lesson for you, for all. So long as baseball has this totally random system and format where the Braves have not played meaningful baseball in a few months, but hey, flip the switch. Oh, wait, but Philly was playing meaningful baseball. Okay, but you weren't. Flip the switch immediately. Come on. What's wrong with you?
Speaking of Phillies, Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show, welcome to the YouTube live stream, says, looking forward to seeing Marc in a Gamecocks hat on the Monday live stream.
Yeah.
Cheers, fellas. Have a great weekend. Was there a wager made?
Oh, there was, Diesel. There was.
Really?
Yeah, there was.
Really? And this is the first we're hearing about this?
Well, I was on a show today.
Okay.
So I was on a show today, and the wager is that I wear a Gamecocks hat on Monday.
Do you have a Gamecocks hat?
Hell no.
Are you going to go buy one?
No. He's got to bring one to me.
Oh.
I'm not buying a Gamecocks hat.
That's true. Chris does live in an undisclosed bunker in the upstate
No,
somewhere.
I'm not buying a Gamecocks hat. But if or possibly when the Gamecocks beat the Gators, I got to wear a Gamecocks hat on Monday. Should the Gators win, which I don't think is going to happen, Chris, he's got to wear a Florida Gators hat. Why did I make this bet? Well, I made this bet, Diesel, for this reason and this reason alone. I'm going to be on the air tomorrow, and I know that I'm going to get blown up when the game's over. Oh, he's ducking us. He's ducking us because I'm going to be on the air. Well, I've talked about that with you, right? And Chris has volunteered to let his legions of fans know that Marc is on the air right now, and he can't say anything about the game because he's on the air. I want everybody to know I'm not ducking the results or anything like that. In exchange for that, I will wear a Gamecock hat Monday should the Gators lose, and I think they probably will. Okay, but we'll get to that. We'll get to our official scores and our predictions coming up at 5:40 p.m. today. If you're a Braves fan, are you mad at me right now? Is that fair? I'm just being honest with you guys. I didn't feel like talking about this for another 3 weeks.
Mad Kraft is mad at you.
Really?
Yeah, he's not a big fan of yours in the thread right now.
Uh-oh.
He said, he goes, I mean, I would prefer you not root against my team just because you don't like baseball.
Yeah.
Says just don't talk about it then.
Yeah.
He's a little miffed.
Well, Mad Kraft, brother, I understand.
How much are you mad at Marc and how much are you just mad at your team?
Yeah, I get it. I understand. I get it, guys. All right. Let's quickly get to just a couple of your messages. Attaboy Braves, enjoy watching the Red October. Marc, did you hear Braves pitcher Kyle Wright out for the 2024 season? I did hear that. Please do not call us your little babies ever again. Sincerely, everyone listening, including Diesel. It's a trademark, man. Sorry.
How about new?
You can listen to it if you want, or you can listen to something else. My Gamecock fandom keeps me prepared for the downfall of the Braves each postseason. That's the text of the day, Spur Daddy. His Gamecock fandom keeps him prepared for the downfall of the Braves.
That's joy.
Lots of texts coming in on a Friday episode of the show. We talk high school football with Cole Bryson. Coming up next, right here on Offsides. It's Offsides. Marc, Ron, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Joined right now by Cole Bryson, our high school football expert and the host of the Saturday Scramble. All right, Cole, so you are a Braves fan. You are upset. I was very honest with the audience in the open. I said, I am happy the results played out the way that they did because, frankly, I didn't feel like covering the Braves for another 3 weeks. It's not my team. It's not my sport. I was going to have to talk about something that I, frankly, didn't want to talk about, and I'm very honest with the audience here. The Braves found a way to lose. What do you make, Cole, of the fact that we have a system and a format, right? And look, onto the system and format we have, the Phillies kicked the Braves' ass. But the system and format resulted in 3 of the 4 best teams being eliminated. The only one who is still alive had to play for its life through the last weekend of the season. The other 3, the Braves included, weren't playing meaningful baseball in months. Don't tell me that doesn't have something to do with the results we saw.
No, it does. And Mark, my thoughts are going a million different ways, obviously, as an upset Braves fan. But, to me, when you look at the regular season, Mark, I believe there are too many games. And I hate to say this, but I believe there are too many meaningless games.
Sure.
And when you have a postseason like this, to me, that kind of proves true when you have a team like the Phillies who have great players. And I think the toughest pill for Braves fans to swallow was that the Phillies, they didn't squeak by. They didn't steal one from you. They were just better. They were more dominant in every aspect. The pitching was better. The hitting was better. The coaching was better. They didn't pitch. We pitched to Bryce Harper for whatever reason. I don't know why the Braves did that, but the Phillies outplayed the Braves in every single aspect. And I think that's why, Mark, the pill is as tough as it is to swallow for Braves fans.
There you go. All right. Cole Bryson joining us here on the show today. Cole, will you be a little bit more cautious of your heart the next Braves season, or will you be fully in from game 1 through 162? I mean, we were trying to draw an analogy to it, Cole, and the one we centered on is you finished a 10-page paper in high school on an old computer, the power went out, you lost all of it. I mean, that's what Braves fans have to feel like, right? Like, think of what you invested.
I'm a Cowboys fan. I know what it's like to win in the regular season and snowball in the postseason. Now, again, I know the Braves won the championship a couple of years ago, and the Cowboys hadn't won in 6 decades, whatever. I know what it's like to lose in the regular season or to win every regular season game and be the best team in baseball, the best team, the best, blah blah blah, right? And then the postseason comes and it all crashes down. Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. But I think that, to your question, yes, I think Braves fans should be more cautious because, again, tell me, I could be wrong here, but I want a Braves fan to tell me I'm wrong and explain to me how I'm wrong. But what purpose does the regular season hold if you just saw what you just saw for the Atlanta Braves?
Exactly. Why invest your time in something that doesn't matter? The postseason, Cole, is essentially put every team in a blender and see which one the blender spits out. Okay, there's your champion. I mean, that's what it feels like right now. It's so random. It is just so random. All right, Cole Bryson joins us now on the show. I'd be remiss, Cole, now that we're talking to you about non-high school football topics. The Cowboys 49ers game, reminds me a lot of the college football rivalry, Michigan and Ohio State. Ohio State is not going to get by Michigan until they can out-physical Michigan. Michigan bully balls them every single time they play. And, in terms of sheer talent, you don't want to say Brock Purdy is ahead of Dak Prescott, but what's really going on there? Like, why is there still such a gap?
Well, they've got their number. The 49ers do. And a couple of years ago, that you talked about the word physical. A couple of years ago, that was the biggest point of emphasis after the first loss. Now it's 3 in a row to San Francisco. After the first loss, Mike McCarthy and everybody said that was the biggest emphasis. We got out physical by San Francisco. And in 3 years, they've lost 3 in a row to those guys, and they're not even Mark, when you watch that game Sunday, they're not even in the same stratosphere. I mean, it looked like two teams that didn't even belong on the same field. And it pains me and guts me to say that, but they're more physical. That I tell you this, they're way better coached. They're way better coached. That Kyle Shanahan ran laps around Mike McCarthy on Sunday night, and the Cowboys didn't execute. The Cowboys have no offense, no identity on offense. CeeDee Lamb was asked about it in the postgame, Mark, and he looked at the reporters and he said, "I don't know what our offensive identity is." So, for Mike McCarthy, the play caller who just took over and was supposed to fix the offense, they looked good against the Giants and the misfits of the NFL, but man, they didn't look like they belonged on the same field as San Francisco. That was definitely – it's been a rough week for – are we adding salt to the wound, Mark? It's been a rough week for me.
You are at the center of the sporting universe, my friend. You really are. That was the highest rated NFL game of the year, and we've had a historically good Braves offense just absolutely sputter out. And, I just want fans to do better than the bats got cold and throw their hands up. Now, that doesn't even make any sense. There's a science behind what happened to the Braves.
Yeah.
It's not just the bats went cold. There's a reason for what you saw there. Cole, but are we in fact now at week 8? Is that where we are? Unbelievable. Week 8 of a 10-week season. Cole, can you set the table for us? What's coming up?
Well, it's a good week this week. And listen, based on the results from last week, there are a lot of signs now pointing in a lot of different regions for that last final regular season week to be for region championships all across the upstate. So it's going to be a lot of fun, but just a few that I'll highlight tonight before I get to all of them. Crescent at Pendleton tonight should be a fantastic football game. Crescent's 5-2. Pendleton has only one loss on the season. The Pendleton Bulldogs have won 4 straight, Mark. Luke Gray, this is a story that we haven't talked about enough. The quarterback for Pendleton, Luke Gray, through 7 weeks of high school football, Mark, has amassed 2,000 passing yards. He has 34 touchdowns on the season. And there's no quarterback in the state that I can find whose numbers are even remotely close to Luke Gray's at Pendleton. So the Bulldogs are for real. That should be a good game tonight between them and Crescent. I do like Pendleton to come out on top. Greenwood Westside should be fun. Greenwood's 4-3. Westside's 6-1. They have a really good quarterback as well in Cutter Woods, who is getting offers from a lot of different places. And in fact, I'm working on a spreadsheet, Mark, that we're going to be able to have on air in a few weeks that has, the kids in the upstate with the most offers, just to kind of end the season and put a bow on, who has offered who. But that should be a good one tonight. I would give the edge, however, to Westside. And then, in my opinion, the game of the night is TL Hanna at Hillcrest. If you're in Greenville County tonight and don't have plans, and you're a football fan and new to high school football, or you're not new to it, Hanna Hillcrest is going to be the matchup of the week. It is going to be phenomenal. 2 good teams. Hanna obviously runs that wing T offense that's so hard to stop. Hillcrest has had a great year. Caleb Sutton, the quarterback. Avery McFadden, they're Mr. Everything. He can do it all. Running back, wide receiver, water boy, you name it, he can do it. This one last year came down to the very end, and Hillcrest just they had one stolen right from underneath them last year by Hanna. I like Hillcrest to return the favor tonight. This one could go either way. It should be a fantastic matchup, but those are the 3 that I'd highlight tonight, Mark.
You, of course, can get your questions in to Cole Bryson, which you can do on the madworldattractions.com text line, 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. Texter says, Cole, after my Boiling Springs suffered a heartbreaking overtime loss at home last week, how do you like their chances tonight at the reservation in Gaffney?
Well, that's a game that I've talked to a lot of people about this week. I'll be there tonight for that one, but that one's really intriguing. While it wasn't one of the ones that I gave you to set the table for tonight's games, Mark, it's still a really intriguing game because Boiling Springs, we've talked about, they're just a few plays away. The ball bounces their way. They get a couple of stops, and they're sitting here in the toughest region in the state at a 2-0. Unfortunately, they're 0-2, but they're still well respected. I talked to a lot of Gaffney coaches this past week who's talked about Boiling Springs and their new coaching staff, and they have all the respect in the world for them. This is not a Boiling Springs team that's going to come in and have to play with their chip on their shoulder. Gaffney understands that this is a tough opponent. They're a tough out. They've played Dorman and Burns really close. And like I said, a couple of plays away from winning both of those games. They've got to rely tonight on Lincoln Husky, their quarterback, to have a career game. I really think that he's going to have to step up in a big way tonight and against a pretty good Gaffney defense. I don't think the Bulldogs will fold, even though they're 0-2. Obviously, looking down the barrel of 0-3, which is tough in this very tough region. But I expect Bowling Springs to come out tonight like a wounded warrior, if you will, swinging. Mark, I think they're going to come out swinging tonight. I don't think that this team's going to go down without a fight tonight, Mark. It should be a good one over at Gaffney.
Cole, we had a fantastic conversation, and thank you for doing everything you did to set it up with Gaffney's Jaden McDowell, our high school player of the week just a few days ago. Is there an athlete or two that maybe aren't putting up the massive numbers good enough to win that recognition on a week-by-week basis, but they're putting up just solid numbers week after week after week, just kind of that consistently really good performer that is just waiting for an opportunity to break out?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. The two that come to my mind, Diesel, are Lincoln Husky at Bowling Springs and Coleman Gray at Chapman. Coleman Gray, I talked about Lincoln Husky. He's had a great year. He's just a junior. He'll be back next year. He hasn't won the Player of the Week this year, but, man, he like you said, he's just waiting for a game to where things go his way. And Coleman Gray, he's had a phenomenal season, man. His stats have been great. He hasn't played every game to the end because, like, for example, when they played Carolina a few weeks ago, that game was over, midway through the first quarter. But Chapman's so good this year. They're so talented, and a large part of that is due to their quarterback play at Coleman Gray. Somebody that I kind of had question marks about coming into the season, but Coleman Gray, the quarterback of Chapman, he is definitely came in this season and had a phenomenal year and proved a lot of people wrong.
All right, Cole, let's get to it. Some of your picks of the week. We'll let you take points.
Absolutely, Mark. It should be a fun one. There are a lot of good games tonight. In 1A, I like Calhoun Falls over Ware Shoals. I like Christ Church over Dixie. In 2A, by the way, there were a couple of games last night. In 2A, I'll take 96 over Liberty. I'll take Blacksburg over Chesney. I'll take Abbeville over Landrum. In 3A, give me Chapman over Travelers Rest. I don't think that game will be close. That is homecoming tonight for the Chapman Panthers. I'll take the Pendleton Bulldogs over Crescent. I'll take West Oak over Walhalla. I like Daniel over Seneca. Wren Palmetto should be a good game. I like Wren 28-14 over Palmetto. I like BHP over Fountain Inn tonight. Southside Powdersville, that game won't be close. I like Powdersville somewhere 38-7. Broom's off tonight. I like Carolina over, Carolina Blue Ridge played last night. I got that one wrong, by the way. Blue Ridge won. Union County is off tonight. Chester, Emerald. Give me Chester Cyclones over Emerald. And also in 3A, Clinton at Woodruff. I like Clinton over Woodruff 35-21. In 4A, I like Greenville over Pickens, Easley over Berea, Westside over Greenwood. I like Lawrence over Wade Hampton. I like Riverside over Eastside. And in 5A, I like Hillcrest. I went back and forth all week long on this one. I think the Hillcrest Rams beat PL Hanna tonight somewhere in the ballpark of 36-31. I think it's pretty high scoring and very close. Woodmont is off tonight. I like J.O. Man big over Malden. I like Burns big over Dorman. And I like Gaffney over Bowling Springs, a 31-14, 31-17 type of score. And Spartanburg, they are off tonight. So those are tonight's games and my picks. I've already got one wrong last night, so we'll see if I can do better tonight. And, Mark, it should be a lot of fun tonight.
There you go. He is the one and only Cole Bryson. Cole, what is coming up on the Saturday Scramble tomorrow?
Well, a big show coming your way tomorrow. Obviously, we'll talk to players and coaches, but we're also going to talk to Trey Stewart. Trey is sports reporter / editor for the Greer Citizen. He covers a few teams over in that area, including Burns. He'll be at Burns Dorman tonight, so we'll talk to him tomorrow morning, which, by the way, is usually a huge game. Burns Dorman usually, pulls all the attention from the entire state, but because Dorman is so down this year, obviously it's not getting the attention that it normally does. But we'll talk to Trey about that one, as well as a few players and coaches in the morning as well, Mark.
We look forward to it, Cole. Thanks so much, as always, for all you do. We'll be tuned in tomorrow morning.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good day.
I appreciate it very, very much. Texter says, Mark, you said put every team in a blender and see who comes out on top. That's the format for MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL, and most college sports. Texter, you didn't do your homework. This is yet another lazy take. What sport produces the greatest number of underdogs? Major League Baseball, 42%. Major League Baseball has produced underdogs at a 59% clip this postseason with this format. But in just the regular season, Major League Baseball produces underdogs at 42%. What's the rate of underdog wins in college football? 22%. Come on, man. Come on. Do you guys do research before you spew? Or do you just spew? It's obvious you just spew to me. How about there's this amazing tool called Google. You can just look it up. It's right there for you. Mongo says, hey, can we talk about the Steve Smith, Jerry Jeudy beef? That bleep is gold. Yeah, I'd like to do it next. We'll see if we can get it working right after this here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Oh, it's interesting, guys. There is a feeling in media, right? And I think this is part of the reason this show has been as successful as it's been, right? There's a feeling in media that the hometown media is supposed to homer it up for the hometown team. And we don't do that here. Obviously, you guys know that. I mean, I think that's why you're here, is because we don't do that. By the way, Shane Whited, great to have you in, Shane, on the YouTube chat today, man. Great to see you. I think you and I were talking on Twitter the other day. We don't do that. We praise both sides where warranted. We criticize both sides where warranted. But for whatever reason, like these new media entities that pop up, think that the way to build a following is just to like give the fans what they want. Let's increase the star ratings because subscriptions will go up if our players are ranked higher. And at the end, it leaves a void in terms of people in media who are willing to be honest with you. And so those people become the ones that people listen to the most. And that's been our niche here on Offsides, Marc, Ryan, and Diesel. It is also the niche of former Carolina Panthers great Steve Smith, who is like Jim Carrey in the movie Liar, Liar. He just does not know how to tell a lie. Now, he was on the call last night for the NFL Network. We saw him at the Carolina Panthers training camp this year. Was very nice, was very cordial.
Dude looks like he could still put on the pads and go play.
Oh,
He's
really
still
does.
jacked as hell.
He really does, and he makes eye contact with you and smiles and waves and all that stuff. Really good dude. And Charles Barkley is very outspoken and is also a really nice, good dude. It's amazing how that works, huh? Maybe the homers aren't the people you think they are, and maybe the guys who are truthful with you are actually the guys that, you want to spend more time around. In any case, Steve Smith was asked about Jerry Jeudy because his name is circulating in the trade rumors, and let's just say Steve Smith is voting ixnay on that.
A short while ago, Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy was walking by, and Steve called out to him, and he got a different reaction.
I called out to him because on my podcast, Cut to It, I just talked about guys that maybe have not showed up in the way or in the manner. And so the word that I've used to describe him in the past was a jag, just a guy.
Just a guy.
And so when I saw him, he's playing well. I wanted to say to him face to face, like, hey, I know I said some things in the past I probably shouldn't have, and I'm sorry. That's what I wanted to say to him. His response, Mike Robb and Bucky, was ninja.
Ninja.
Yes, I'm using the word ninja. I'm just using the word ninja. I don't mess with you. And it was a curse word. And so I was like, all right. And then he repeated it. So I'll say it again. I'm sorry that I said you were a jag, just a guy who's an average wide receiver that used a first-round pick on, that isn't doing anything. I hope today that you actually show up in a way that you haven't showed up in the last couple of years since they drafted you. So if you ever got a problem with Agent 89, I'm sorry for saying that you're an average wide receiver, that they eventually will move on. And when teams call me and asking, should they trade for you, I will say no, don't trade for Jerry Jeudy, because he's mentally unable to handle constructive criticism from people who watch specifically, can he be a wide receiver? He could be a wide receiver. He's a tier 3. Go back into the studio. I'm done now. Thank you.
Oh, man. Jerry Jeudy, folks, it's what's for dinner. He's been cooked, fricasseed, boiled.
By the way, Jerry Jeudy last night had 3 catches for 14 yards.
And he's grateful for all 14.
And his long catch of the game was 13 yards.
So he had 2 catches for 1 yard outside.
Correct.
Wow.
So it proves Steve Smith correct. Jerry Jeudy was a jag in that game. And that's one of those guys that J.J. Hardy mentioned that the Carolina Panthers might be interested in pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jerry Judy's got a good name. People think of him as a named guy, but he's not producing.
That's a hell of an exchange. And Steve Smith just gained some more fans for that exchange. And then you think about it from a Carolina Panthers perspective, Diesel, and you'll be on the call again on the Carolina Panthers kickoff show.
Ugh, don't remind me.
This Sunday.
5.95 losses already.
You know what? How honest? Could you guys appreciate how honest Diesel and I are with you in the first hour of the show? Diesel has an assignment to host the Carolina Panthers pregame, and he goes, ugh, don't remind me. Most hosts would feel that and never let you know. Most hosts would feel like, man, I really hope the Braves lose so I don't have to talk baseball playoffs anymore on here. But they wouldn't tell you that. We tell you that. We tell you the stuff we're probably not supposed to tell you here on the show, right? That's who we are. That's what we do. But the moral of the story is, Diesel, these guys, both of the guys linked to the Panthers, are knuckleheads. Now, should the Panthers try to win just so the draft pick that they've already given up isn't high and they can feel better about themselves? No.
No, they need to win to save their locker room.
You've already lost that draft pick. Don't win so the number 1 pick becomes the number 8 pick. But the two guys linked to them are both head cases. This Jeudy jag, okay? And then Jameson Williams, who was already suspended for gambling. Diesel, these are the two guys. These are the guys that you're relying on to resurrect your season. These are the guys. Or you can just wait until the offseason and make a run at T. Higgins. That's what I would do. Make a run at T. Higgins in the offseason. Get yourself a true number 1 in T in the offseason. That's my strategy.
Man of Tomorrow says, I don't even know who Jeudy is, so he must be a Jag. Spur Daddy helps him out and says, another player that played for Bama that is supposedly an NFL superstar just because he played at Bama.
He was awesome at Bama, man.
He was.
Jameson Williams was awesome at Bama. Jeudy awesome at Bama. I don't know what's going on. It's they have no passing attack in Denver. Russell Wilson got old overnight. Evidently, Russell Wilson's game was far more predicated on mobility than we previously realized. Okay? Like when he is made to be a pocket passer, like Dak Prescott is now made to be a pocket passer with all his injuries, doesn't move around as much anymore. Dak doesn't. Looks very average, looks very mediocre. Single-digit points for Denver last night. Single-digit points. Hey.
Madcraft saying what we already know and want. Sign T. Higgins. T. Higgins has 12 receptions for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns this year. He's averaging 11 yards a reception. I don't know if you're T. Higgins if you'd want to leave the Bengals for the Panthers.
You have a chance to be the dude.
Yeah,
a chance to be the guy. What numbers could you put up if you're the only option they have? All right. Up next, we talk college football with our guy, Brent Beard, Heisman Trophy voter. I'm Marc Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my beautiful babies? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Wonderful to have you guys with us. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day each and every day. So we've got Florida and we've got South Carolina. And Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show and I have a wager. The losing team, should Florida lose or should the Gamecocks lose, the other has to wear the opponent's hat. So if the Gamecocks beat the Gators on the YouTube stream on Monday, you'll see me wearing a Gamecocks hat. I will be looking my absolute worst. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to survive that. Should the Gators beat the Gamecocks, Chris will be wearing my lovely white, orange and blue Gator hat. I mean, you know I'm not going to give him anything that looks bad, right? Like what I give him is not going to be orange because that's an awful color. Although I could go pick one up and he'd have to wear it. That'd be pretty sweet. We'll see what happens. He has to wear it on the Spurs Up Show should the Gators win. So we're joined right now, as always, by our dear friend Brent Beard, Heisman Trophy voter, First Coast News in Jacksonville. Invite you to follow him on Twitter at Brent, B-E-A-I-R-D. And Brent, what goes into the psyche of a team like Florida that can't win on the road? A team that looks for all intents and purposes at home to be a top 25 team, and on the road doesn't look like a top 75 team. Is that just mental weakness, Brent? Like, how does Florida overcome that in this one?
Well, I don't think they're very tough mentally or physically yet. Does that mean they've improved some? Yes, I will give them that. But still, 1-7 on the road under Billy Napier is not certainly adequate, and it's not something that is acceptable, and that is understood too. But I think you're onto something there. At some point, you've got to have a mentality that this is a business trip. We're going to go up and get the win and be able to come back. But see, part of that, it goes deeper than this, is on the road. They have had over the last couple of years since Napier's come in, on the road at Tennessee, 10 penalties, at A&M, 10 penalties, at Vandy, 7, Florida State, 10. In the bowl game, they had 11. At Utah, they had 9. At Kentucky, they had 10. So, Mark, what's the message there?
Oh, yeah, the message is get your head screwed on right,
Yeah,
and you got to learn how to play with crowd noise, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's some really good stuff, Brent. I appreciate you sharing that. 1-7. And like an average of essentially double-digit penalties in these road games. But then, Brent, if you go inside the numbers, right? Florida's offense averaging 406 yards a game. South Carolina's 399. Mm-hmm. So you could say, even though Rattler's better than Mertz, that all told, including Florida's running game, the offenses this year have been a wash. Yeah. Florida's defense has been more than 100 yards a game better than South Carolina's as we approach the midway point. So if Florida can perform on the road and not beat itself, defensively the Gators have an advantage in this game, do they not? I mean, it's not like South Carolina is going to maul them the way that Kentucky did.
No, I agree with you. And that's, if the Gators have got something to hang their hat on, that would still be their defense. Now, Graham Mertz, and this tells you you can use stats however you want to. Graham Mertz, believe it or not, Mark and Diesel, is number 2 nationally in completion percentage, 80%. But and this is just an honest assessment here, Mark. But even though he's 80%, you couldn't say Graham Mertz at this point is a great quarterback, could you? So 80% is nice, but again, what they found is Mertz beyond 20 yards is not very accurate. That goes along with that either. Now, again, and I'm sure the stat you guys have tossed around the whole week with South Carolina has been the offensive line ranked 131 in the nation in sacks allowed. So that's a real concern. But again, this game is important for both of these teams because, it could not only determine do you go to a bowl game and get extra practices and attention from recruits, but what bowl game do you go to? So look, I'm very interested in this game. I think there's a lot riding on this game.
Yeah, Brent, I tried to tune in and watch the Marshall NC State game on Saturday because they're a conference mate of my team, and I cared to see if they could pick up a Power 5 win, but I couldn't watch the game. I've cut the cord. The game was not on the CW Network's streaming app. Rights deals are being splintered more and more onto non-traditional sports outlets. At what point is it just not worth it for these conferences to sign deals that spin off content to like the Food Network? I mean, it doesn't seem so ludicrous to say that a game could be played on the Food Network so long as they talked up the tailgate and how to make the best tailgate jambalaya or whatever.
Yes. Well, and as long as you give, as long as you're getting money, it could be on PBS for that matter. So, and look, let me give you an example of this. The college football playoff has received interest from CBS, Warner Brothers, Discovery, ESPN, Fox, Apple, and Amazon, just to name a few. So then what we're going to have soon, and we're beginning to have it now, is the games being on a streaming service only at this point. So my question is, and I always come back to this because I think this is a crux of it. Could Marc's father, if it was only on, I don't know, pick one, Marc, Apple or Amazon or whatever, could he be patient enough for Marc to talk him through how to get it and how to pay for it? Or, and to answer Diesel's question here, or at some point would he just say, I've had enough of this, not going to do it, I'll wait till it comes to cable?
The hell with it, Brent. I mean, that's exactly what he would say. But Brent, how do you? I mean, we see where this is going, right? Like you and I and Diesel have decisions we've got to make with our resources, and it's like, okay, do I want to do ESPN Plus, or do I want to do Pro Football Focus, or do I want to invest in graphics? And I can't do everything.
No.
Are we now entering an era, Brent, where we're going to have to choose? Okay, what 8 channels do you pay for? And what 8 channels do I pay for?
Right.
And that's not a college football menu that I think appeals to any of us.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, look, I'm going from the local cable company here to YouTube TV is what I've done now. And I understand you get 4 games in one box. I forgot what they call that. Y'all probably
Multi-view.
know.
I did the same thing this year, Brent. I mean, you're more advanced than I am, man. I'm 46. You're older than me. I'm 40. I'm 46. You're 51. So you're advanced than me. I just made the switch. Multi-view is the coolest thing I ever saw.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. But again, Diesel's point's a good one because it's coming, if we like it or not. I can understand how. Look, guys, as you know, there's too much money in these streaming businesses, not for college football to get involved on some or some part. But the point of this is, how deep do you get into this without you risking losing people? And look, I'm not saying that people 45 to 50 and up are technically challenged, all of them, because some of them are really good at it, but not all of them are. And I'm just being honest about that. And again, it's like going to a game or anything else. The more convenient it is, the better. The less convenient we make it, whether going to a game or the streaming service and how we pick up the game is going to be determined, is it not? Am I off on this? But that's going to determine who watches and don't watch these games in the next few years.
Brent, I'm looking at, score differentials of the last 5 games, comparing them side by side, Southern Cal and Notre Dame. And I just cannot for the life of me figure out, with Southern Cal putting up 43, 48, 42, 56, and 66, Notre Dame is a 2.5-point favorite at home. Can you explain this to me, how and why this is the case?
Yes, because that Southern Cal either cannot or doesn't want to play defense. And even though they've got Alex Grinch there, who's got a decent reputation as the coordinator, Lincoln Riley really doesn't want to fool with it. So what that tells you is, if you're, and look, and let's be honest here, they've got the best player in America, arguably. They can score 80 points, but Mark and Diesel, if they give up 82, that's a real problem, and that's basically where they are. And a lot of the media who either cover them or deals with the Pac-10 will tell you very quickly that, they couldn't stop the two of you guys and me and whoever's in the studio right now.
You're really putting us down here, buddy. You're really putting us down. We're capable of way more than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 2 hamstrings. If I lose one, I still got another. Okay, but the reality is that's their problem. That's why in the Pac-12 that USC, until they get serious about getting a defense, will not win a national championship.
Who is the second best team in the SEC East, Brent?
Here, let me go get a quarter and I'll flip it. It really just, we had this discussion this week about who that would be. Now, if you said Kentucky or Missouri, I don't think you'd necessarily be wrong. I think a lot of people would probably pick Tennessee at this point, but Tennessee's got A&M and Alabama coming up, and that certainly might change. When you just look at conference games, Florida could, if they got on a little bit of a run, that they could be. So I think that tells you a lot about the conference. And if South Carolina got on a run, maybe they could be the second best team in the conference. So right now, I know what I'm looking at when I'm seeing Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, and Tennessee, but I'm not necessarily sure that we can go with that right now.
Brent, there's been a lot of talk over the past 2 or 3 weeks about Sam Pittman's future at Arkansas. Yes. It's that time of year now that we're 6-7 games in for most of these schools. If things are not going well, their eyes are going to start looking around. So who are going to be some of the hot names in the coaching carousel as far as guys getting that big opportunity this year?
Well, Pittman is – Pittman is going to, if they lose Alabama, that's going to be 5 in a row. I like Pittman. I frankly wish they would keep him at this point, but I just don't know what they're going to do. I think Austin Armstrong at Florida I don't think he'd go immediately, but I think at 29, if he has 2 or 3 good years at Florida, that he could be able to do that. I think he's almost past the point. I'm not going to say because of age, but because he served his time and wants to retire. But I think a guy like Kevin Steele, who's at Alabama, that he could get a look from some others. And look, there's some pretty good Power 5 guys who certainly could get a job. I tell you, Louisville's going to have a real tough time keeping Jeff Brom. I mean, I know he's the favored son there. And I'm just telling you that is a name in the next 2 or 3 years. If they do what I think they're going to be able to do, and they're undefeated right now in the ACC, I think Jeff Brom, guys, is someone you really need to watch out for. Because, and I'm not saying Louisville's done a good job, because it is, but if Jeff Brom has a chance to go to the SEC, don't you take that?
Oh, absolutely you do. You certainly do. Brent Beard joining us, Heisman Trophy voter. Brent, this has been a point that our audience has wanted to really hone in on, the SEC being down this year, okay? And you've got it at 5-7 against Power 5 opponents this year, with the 5 wins coming over, wait for it, Kansas State, Georgia Tech, Arizona, Cal, and Virginia. My question is, why, Brent? We see the numbers to the NFL draft more than any other conference. We see the recruiting rankings better than any other conference. We know the conference produces more talent than any other conference. Mm-hmm. Is this just a temporary hole in the swing?
I think it is. And then, of course, you've got Oklahoma and Texas coming over. But I think part of that is, it's funny you brought that up, because we've talked about that with some media members this week too, and posed the question is, why is the SEC struggling? And the thing we got from that was, number one, is because everybody doesn't have quarterbacks like they do in the Pac-12, and everybody doesn't have Drake May or Jordan Travis either. But the other thing, you may be a bit surprised with this, but maybe not, with South Carolina struggling the way they are, but it would be the offensive line. That a lot of these SEC teams do not have the offensive line that they used to, or the fact that maybe like Tennessee, their center is probably their best offensive lineman, Cooper Mays, has missed about half the season with injuries. So I would say it's a combination of quarterbacks and the offensive line, both of those not being either as good or as seasoned as they should be in the SEC.
I got to ask one more, Brent. Oregon and Washington, the stats say Oregon is the better of the two teams. Number 2 overall offense, number 6 overall defense, but they're on the road. What are you looking for in this one?
I like Washington in the game because I just like Michael Penix. What a talent. They are humming on offense. Well, you could argue so is Oregon. And they usually go with who's got the best defense at games like this. But the reality is this is really incredible. And by the way, there's a stat that goes along with this that I thought was amazing, that the Oregon-Washington game is the first Pac-12 matchup of teams 5-0 or better since 2004, when Southern Cal beat Arizona State. And during that time, since 2004, the SEC has had that happen 15 times.
Brent Beard,
amazing.
Yes. Yeah, it certainly is. Brent Beard, always love having you on, buddy. Thank you so much for making the time. You and I will be texting over the weekend. I'm hoping for a Florida Gator win. Will I get a Florida Gator win, Brent?
And this one, I'm going with the better quarterback, which is Spencer Rattler. I think it will be a super close game, but although I'm leaning toward Rattler, I still think what's going to determine the game is, will the Gators defense, could they go back to how well they played? I know it was at home, but we were there and it was amazing, but could they go back and get pressure on him like they did against Joe Milton of Tennessee?
Thanks so much, buddy. Have a great weekend, all right?
You too, guys. Take care.
All right, take care. Brent Beard, Heisman Trophy voter, First Coast News in Jacksonville. Texter says, my Gamecocks are so bad, I do not expect them to win. We'll go over some of the key storylines coming up this weekend along the college football ranks. That's next Here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere, it's Offsides. Marc, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the fan upstate. I got to bring you guys into something that just happened. Very excited. Got very lucky. Very, very lucky. So part of, doing a show, right, is you book all these guests. And, like for me, when you do a 4-hour show or a 5-hour show, always like to bring you guys kind of behind the curtain. A guest can be a really nice format breaker, right? Because it gives you a chance to catch your breath and you're able to have a conversation. And I can do that with Diesel, but Diesel has so many other tasks that he's doing during the show. So you set up your football lineup with your guests, right? And that's one of the things we've heard from you guys. Man, you guys have unbelievable guests, and we love it, and great job, etc. And I appreciate that. On the CBS shows, it's a 5-hour show. So I want to make sure I got at least 3 guests, right? And I make some calls, and I try to set some things up, and I have no fewer than like 8 to 10 feelers out there. And during the break, I got a call back from Archie Manning's assistant. And I got lucky because I didn't have my ringer off, and my phone just starts ringing right when the commercial break began. So in other words, if that call happened 2 minutes before, it would have just been ringing while we're on the air. I forgot that I didn't have my ringer off. She calls and she goes, "Hey, Mark, Archie Manning can join you in the 5 o'clock hour tomorrow." So folks, if you are listening to this station tomorrow, it'll be on CBS Sports Radio. I'm told that Archie Manning will be joining us. That's tremendous. Very, very excited about that. Hope you guys can check it out. And what would you like to know from one Archie Manning? Let's get caught up on what you guys are saying on the madworldattractions.com text line 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Great participation thus far. Let's see here. Texter says, "Mark, I can't believe my Gamecocks are 2.5-point favorites. I'll be at the game, but I think that might be an easy upset pick. I don't know who Vegas has been watching." Texter, they've been watching Florida on the road. Texter says, "Mark, Acuna's hit last night should have been a grand slam instead of an out. If the ball travels further in the summer than it does in the fall." Good point, Brandon. Good point. Texter says, "Mark, the Braves pitching choked." Texter says the Phillies were just the hotter team. Any other team, the Braves would have won. Let's see here. Mark, the word Braves means suck in Choctaw. I thought about it, Texter. I thought about it. In the end, I decided to roll with it. Texter says, "Mark, in 2019, the Astros were better than the Nationals too, but look what happened there." Yeah, I mean, upsets happen in sports, guy. They do, my friend. They do. But they happen more in baseball than any other sports. Texter says, "Mark, the Braves didn't have much adversity in the regular season. The Phillies have played meaningful baseball for the last month." That's a major factor for the Braves and Dodgers, 100%. Not only do you get the bye in a sport where you play every single day, now you're not playing every single day, but you also have the best teams not having played meaningful baseball in a very long time. The single best team in the Bigs, okay, of the 4 best teams in the Bigs, there is one still alive, the Houston Astros. The Houston Astros were playing for their lives through the last weekend of the season. Is that a coincidence? You tell me. Let's see here. Strider was giving up hits left and right, should have been pulled 2 innings earlier. I'm a Rays fan, Mark. How do you think I feel? So am I, Texter. He says, "We won 99 games and then got eliminated in like 26 hours. Well, you got 99 problems and another series isn't won. Dexter?
You won 99 games, but not the most important one.
That's it. Texter says, "Baseball is a Karen sport." So says Scotty from BMW. I got to know what you mean by that, Scotty. Texter says, "Mark, what about the Patriots' undefeated season losing to the Giants in the Super Bowl? Regular season gets you in. You have to prove it against top-line competition in the playoffs to earn the championship. In every sport, it's about moments in the players who step up to take them."
It's like that saying that all a college degree is good for is getting you an interview. You know, it's weird to think that, man, I was in school for 4 years. I spent all this money. I'm in all this debt. And all that's good enough is to look good on a resume and get me an interview. After that, it's on me to perform.
That's it, man. That is certainly it. Texter says, unlike some sports, baseball is random. Ebbs and flows. Comes from Hunt GPT. Okay, let's see here. Texter says, another reason that people can't handle criticism is that they're soft, spelled SAWFT. Texter says, the Atlanta Braves' entire season might as well just be a participation trophy. The best offense in the league all year can't even score 10 runs in 4 games. MLB, please change the postseason format. Texter, we've talked about that. So my question to you is, how should they change it? Texter says, Mark, give me Syracuse plus 18.5 over Florida State. Buckeye Brian, no offense. In my opinion, that's the worst pick of the week. Mark, if you have to wear a Gamecock hat, I will be praying you don't go LGBT plus whatever. I don't think you have to worry about that, Texter. Just Jess chiming in. Good pick, Just Jess. New Mexico plus 8 against San Diego State. Dan B going with New Mexico over San Jose State. Dan B going with Hawaii plus 5.5 versus San Diego State. Texter says, my Gamecocks are so bad, I don't expect them to win. J-Rock is going with New Mexico plus 7 over San Jose State. Texter says, Mark, where can I find the upset standings? That comes from Dan B. Dan B, I know, they're coming today. Vines should have started game 3 for the Braves. Elder has been bad down the stretch. The Braves just got smoked. Like, it's almost even hard to find a reason other than you were the better team all year long, and suddenly the Braves players were wearing Phillies uniforms. I mean, how else do you describe what you saw? I'm not sure how you describe what you saw. You were the better team by far, and suddenly you're the worst team by far. The Braves got dominated in 33 of those 36 innings. Okay. Like it wasn't even close. And so I think the why is what's interesting there, right? Texter says, Mark, baseball is a game of rhythm and repetition. I believe the 5-day layoff doesn't benefit the teams that earn the bye. Same reason the Braves lost consecutive series against the Royals and Tigers after the All-Star break. Either change it to 8 teams and eliminate the bye or switch it back to 1-game wild card. But Texter, the Tigers and the Royals didn't play after the All-Star break either. They had a break, right? The Braves at least played the All-Star game. 8 players did. So if everyone has the same bye, it doesn't matter. Okay? I think it's a combination of the time off. Okay? A combination of pressure getting to the Braves. Pressure does weird things to people. And then you factor in the fact that Atlanta hadn't played meaningful baseball in months. Philly's been playing nothing but meaningful baseball for months. All right, my friends. Coming up next, he's written a real polarizing article about the Carolina Panthers for CBS Sports. And the article is, the Panthers already regret drafting Bryce Young? Jack Stern from CBS Sports Radio joins us next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc, Ryan, and Diesel, great to have you guys with us. Appreciate you so much. And we are the Fan Upstate. All right, guys. So one of the guys I'm really fortunate to work with quite often on CBS Sports Radio is an anchor, producer, and columnist for CBS Sports Radio and the number one local sports radio station in America. That's WFAN in New York City. And his name is Jack Stern, and he joins us right now. And it's interesting, Jack, that you join us on a day where, like, we are discussing and openly talking about the fact that many new media entities feel as though the fan base just wants flowers and mints on their teams. And I think one of the reasons why we've been successful is that Diesel and I don't do that. We shoot straight. Somebody asked the question the other day, if you want honesty, would you rather have somebody who's generally a glass half full guy or generally a glass is half empty guy? And Jack, you strike me as a glass is half empty kind of dude. And therefore, if I want the truth, I'm coming to you. And Jack, you might remember this. I've done segments with you. And Jack will say to me, Mark, that one wasn't your best. I would do this. I would do this. I would do this a little more. And Jack, I value that, brother. I value that about you, and I value your column. The Panthers already regret drafting Bryce Young. So, Jack, this is the Jack Stern glass is half empty approach that I value so much. How did you arrive at this conclusion, sir?
Well, I arrived at this conclusion after watching the Panthers' first 5 games and seeing just the extreme level of incompetency that Bryce Young has put forward. Had he given us reasons for optimism, played somewhat well, and suffered through some rookie growing pains, as a lot of young quarterbacks do, I would have tended to say, you know what, he's a young guy. Let's give him some time. Let's start forming our assessments once we get later into the season. But early on, Mark, he's just looked awful, and it hasn't been for a lack of a running game. The offensive line has been shaky at times, so I'll give him that. But the decision-making in the pocket, the proneness to turnovers, which is huge because you got to protect the football, and then the inability to make spontaneous plays on the move, which is something that we saw so much at Alabama. I would say the combination of those 3 things are probably what's most concerning to me at this current point in time. I don't know if it's for lack of physical tools. I tend to say that it's not, simply because he did display what type of playmaker he could be in college. But right now, he's got to find a way to put it all together. Otherwise, it's going to be a really tough rest of the season, but a really tough off season as well, because fans are going to be clamoring for someone else. They're going to be saying that he needs to be pushed more because, let's be honest, Andy Dalton is not sufficient competition as the backup, right? So fans might want them to potentially bring in a veteran, and it's just off to a really, really bad start for Young in Carolina, especially when considering that they pretty much mortgaged off their future to move up to that top slot, trade with the Bears, and take him.
So, Jack, you're saying it wouldn't really even matter if Bryce Young had not even necessarily elite, but at least competent line play and competent receivers. You know, you're putting more of this on Bryce Young's shoulders than most.
Yeah, I would say that I'm putting it on Young's shoulders more than most, because when you look across the league at some of the really good quarterbacks, even when you compare him to C.J. Stroud, who was taken 2nd overall, I think that's important because although it's never good to compare quarterbacks necessarily, it allows you to kind of do a case study. It's not like Stroud has the best receivers either, right? I mean, Robert Woods, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, those guys are all solid, but it's not like he has some of the best big body targets in the league. So he's done a really good job of making lemons out of lemonade, using his skill set, which is important, right? Because guys can only perform with what they're able to do well. You wouldn't take a pocket passer and expect them to make plays on the move and vice versa. And yeah, I think that's really the whole reason why I'm putting this more on Young than Laviska Shenault or Taylor Motton up front or any of the other players on the team. I think he deserves more blame than anyone else.
Jack, we've all heard the expression size matters. Now, this is a family program. Eyes up here. But Jack, you know, it's interesting. About a month ago, I heard Keyshawn Johnson say that he was never a believer in Kyler Murray. And he said, you've never seen someone that size succeed. And darn if I didn't go right to the combine measurements and find that Kyler Murray was 5'10" and a quarter inch. And then I found Bryce Young. Oh my gosh, 5'10" and a quarter inch. Are you kidding me? They're the exact same height. So if Keyshawn isn't buying Kyler, he's also not buying Bryce. To what degree is the size the issue?
You know, that's a tough question because we've seen small quarterbacks have success in the past. But as Diesel kind of attested to, it really depends on the circumstances and the conditions in which they're facing. Early on in Kyler Murray's career, remember when he first got with Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona and everything seemed to be going right? That was because of the playbook. It was because he felt comfortable in that system. And ultimately, he had the tools around him to succeed. And he also wasn't being asked to drop back and throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. When you're asking someone who's 5'9" or 5'10" to do that, not only is it very hard to see over the offensive line in some situations, but you also feel that pocket collapsing on you much quicker. When you factor in the idea that most of the top quarterbacks in college are going to teams with bad offensive lines because the worst teams always are drafting first, right? I think that really creates a recipe for disaster for some of these young quarterbacks because they're already being dealt a really bad card. When they decided where they wanted to go to college, they probably said, I'm going to go somewhere where I know they're going to recruit well on the offensive line and get me some nice receivers. You can't do that in the NFL. And now players like Murray and Young are starting to really learn about the consequences.
Jack, we do a segment called Truth Serum where we propose 4 possible scenarios and the other has to determine which is most likely to come true. Now, I suggested yesterday as one of my 4 that the Panthers would draft another quarterback in the first round, a potential replacement for Bryce Young by 2026, before Bryce's 4-year rookie deal expires. Do you believe that that's more of a possibility, a probability, or an inevitability?
So I'll put it to you like this. If you're talking about the next 2 or 3 years, I do believe it's an inevitability. Excuse me, tongue twister there. But I think it's inevitable because teams that aren't completely satisfied with the quarterback position, with how much quarterbacks are demanding nowadays, if they don't like their guy, they're going to go out and select a new one, not just to get a new body in there, but also to hit the reset button financially and about what their contract is going to look like. I don't see the Panthers taking a quarterback in the first round this season simply because they'd be going back on what they did last season and taking one first overall. And they'd pretty much be telling Young to hit the street if that's the case, right? Because his replacement would ultimately take over the starting job. But I think it's very conceivable that they could wait until the 3rd, the 4th round and take one of these developmental prospects if they're still available. I think Bo Nix, if he drops a little bit, could represent a nice option, as could Shedeur Sanders if he decides to return to school at Colorado. But no, given the lack of draft capital that they have in the near future, I don't see them necessarily taking a quarterback very high.
Jack, you and I in our lives have both had bad bosses. We have different bosses, and we have a couple of bosses that are the same bosses in what we do. Those bosses, in my experience, and you've told me this off the air, are outstanding. And that has been my experience with them as well. But given our experience with bad bosses in our past, how bad do you feel for Frank Reich when you hear what he says, that he has to have Monday meetings with the owner that are not fun? And it sounds like you've got a micromanaging tyrant walking around there, Jack. Do you have any awful boss story? Or just how badly do you feel for Frank Reich here?
Well, I'm not going to tell my awful boss stories because I don't want to give those guys the publicity that they don't deserve, right? That's not fair. If they were bad bosses and they were mistreating us, then it's not right to necessarily talk about them. But I will say for Frank Reich, I feel especially bad for him because he's experienced what it's like to have really good bosses. Remember in Philadelphia when he worked under Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman? How good of a tandem that was, how much stability was above him at the time with Doug Peterson. It could be said for Indianapolis to some degree or another with Jim Irsay, but then he comes to Carolina and he has David Tepper not only hovering over his shoulder, but telling him how to coach the sport of football, which Tepper has never played, never coached, never been directly involved with until he bought the Panthers. And I really don't see how they solve their differences, because this situation is going to unfold where there's a power dynamic. Frank is going to want more say in the personnel, who he puts on the field, what plays he calls, whereas Tepper is always going to want the final decision. It's odd. I was thinking about owner-coach dynamics that didn't work out, that resembled this situation. I was doing some thinking before coming on the air, and I was having trouble coming up with duos that really were like oil and water when you mix them together. How's this for a comparison, guys? Lane Kiffin and Al Davis.
Oof.
Remember when Al Davis fell in love with Kiffin as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at USC? Nobody could understand how he was even being considered for a head coaching job. Davis falls in love with him. He has to hire him. And then halfway through the season, neither side can remember why they even put on a ring to get married to one another. I think that's unfortunately a very similar situation in Carolina. And the bad part about this situation is that fans really wanted Steve Wilks, who showed what he could do, and went 6-6 in his final 12 games with a pretty bare-bone roster, which, in my opinion, should have allowed him to become the permanent head coach. But unfortunately, Tepper went with his gut, and I think we're seeing what happens when you pair two guys together that really don't work well.
His name is Jack Stern, folks. You hear the talent. Anchor, producer, columnist for WFAN and CBS Sports Radio. I've had the privilege of working with Jack a number of times, and frankly, I'm better for it. Out of New York, New York, the one and only Jack Stern. Follow him on Twitter at J_Stern97. Great catching up with you, pal. Looking forward to the next time we team up together.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark. Have a good rest of your show, and good luck to South Carolina this weekend, because I know they're playing your alma mater. I'm going to root for them.
Thank you, buddy.
I want to appeal to the people in the upstates. They got to like me.
Yeah, I got to wear a Gamecock hat if they beat the Gators on Monday. That's going to be the longest day of my life. Have a great one, buddy. Jack Stern. Jack Stern from New York City. We've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next, right here on Offsides. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Coming up is the segment that we get the most participation in, week in, week out, day in and day out. It's the top 5 at 5. You know, guys, it is always our attempt to create driveway moments. Those moments where you just can't get out of your car because you want to hear what the show is going to say. And this is certainly one of those moments. Certainly one of those moments. Love bringing it to you each and every day. Texter says the solution to the wild card problem, Mark, or the baseball format problem, is to play for the wild card from here on out. I'm not sure what that means. Mark, for all the Braves fans, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Texter says, Mark, baseball is a game of rhythm and repetition. I believe the 5-day layoff doesn't benefit the teams that earn the buys. That's been a popular refrain, right? Mark L.O. Duck says, Phillies had the better team. Braves setting their tee times for. So says Mark L.O. Ducks. Well, that's just the thing, Mark. They didn't have the better team. So how do you determine that, Mark? So Research 101 tells us, right, that the greater your sample size, the more accurate your project. What's a bigger sample size, 162 games or 4? You tell me. What's a bigger sample size? So therefore, what's a more accurate determinator of who the better team is? The results over a larger sample size. The baseball postseason gives us something completely and totally random. Random. In any case, it is time for us, my friends, to do that jam at 5:40. We will make our picks official for the weekend of the weekend's biggest games. And yes, my friends, should the Gamecocks beat the Gators, I will be wearing a Gamecock hat to work. Definitely one day next week, probably on Monday. Okay? I'm sure if the Gamecocks win, Chris Phillips is going to find a way to get me a Gamecock hat. Now, if the Gators win, you can see I'm already talking in a fatalistic way, right? Like I'm bracing myself for this inevitability. Then Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show has to wear a Florida Gator hat, my Florida Gator hat, during his show. Oh, that warms the cockles of my heart, my friends. All right, let's have an awesome hour participation-wise. Let's get your calls. Let's get your texts. Let's get your tweets. Let's get all the above. It's time, my friends, for the top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day. The top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
At number 5, where else to begin but the Braves going home in absolutely heartbreaking fashion. Folks, the Phillies just absolutely kicked their ass and did so to the point that the Braves should be paying them rent. Now not 1, but 2 years in a row. And, you know, fans like to say these common refrains that are lazy. They just have our number. What does that mean? What does that mean, they just have your number? Think about what you're saying. What does that mean? Okay? Oh, the bats just went cold. Bats don't go cold. Everybody stopped hitting at the same time based on what?
Yeah, Pedro Serrano put a hat on his bat, but didn't keep his bat warm. He goes, straight ball, I hit very far. Curveball, can't hit.
Right. It's Serrano from Major League. So, guys, you know, the Braves didn't perform. That much we know. The Braves failed to score 10 runs in the series. The Braves scored all of 3 runs in Philadelphia. Last year in 2 games in Philadelphia, they scored 4 runs in 2 games in Philadelphia. Okay? So they just didn't perform in the series. And Philadelphia dominated them in every single stretch. And the why is fascinating. You know, like, if you hit me with, well, Philadelphia was just the better team, the history shows, the research shows that they were not. So why did they perform better here? Just like they performed better last year than the Atlanta Braves. Okay? And the reason, in my opinion, is threefold. One, the Braves have a younger team that doesn't perform very well under pressure. Philly's more veteran team. Number two, this baseball format has resulted in only one of the four best teams in the game still being alive. And that one team, Houston, was playing for its playoff life up through the last weekend of the year. When was the last time the Braves played meaningful baseball? Months ago, right? And then you have the fact that the Braves play an everyday game for 6 months and did not play for 5 days. You can't tell me that this stuff doesn't matter. Even if Atlanta's playing games against minor league teams to keep themselves sharp or fresh, what's going on is they're not playing meaningful baseball for a very, very long time. So what do you do about that? How do you solve this issue? You know, it's not just a Braves issue. It is an issue for all of baseball. Because there would be one thing, I guess all these teams that are winning are doing so legitimately, right? But the sport itself produces more upsets than any other sport. Major League Baseball has 41.6% underdog winning percentage. In NCAA football, that number's 21%. It's the sport that produces the most upset, and now you have invented a format that just essentially randomizes everything. Arizona, Philadelphia is not the NLCS that Major League Baseball had in mind. Next up.
4.
At number 4. Agree or disagree with this sentiment, my friends? Matt Miller, ESPN NFL Draft Scout, says that NFL scouts believe that Caleb Williams would have been the number 1 pick in both 2020 over Joe Burrow and 2021 over Trevor Lawrence. Buy or sell on that? These are two guys that have really panned out, right? Would have been the first round pick. In other words, his pre-draft grade is higher than their pre-draft grade. I don't think many folks, I think there's an East Coast bias where you guys aren't realizing how good this cat is. And if I could go back and change my upset pick, which I can't do, I'd change it to USC. You're going to find out just how good Caleb Williams is this weekend. He's a magician. The team around him stinks. All right? He's the only reason they're anything. And I think in the entire history of the NFL, there's only been one Patrick Mahomes. I think there's about to be 2.
I'm going to advise against you changing your pick because you have half a point. And a 3-point spread is not going to do you any good.
I can't change my pick, these. Yeah, that's a rule. You and I, once we make our picks,
it's locked.
And everybody else, you know, once you make your pick, it's locked. We can't be going back and, oh, this guy picked this and this guy picked that. But a reminder, you can chime in with your upset picks. You have until 7 p.m. to do so. Next up.
3.
This, to me, guys, is the no-duh of the week. But the New York Post reports that Pat McAfee reveals that he has paid Aaron Rodgers over $1 million for his interviews on the Pat McAfee show. Diesel, this to me is like, I'm not going to play the dumb card like you didn't know that, but
sure.
I feel like you knew that, right? Like he's not getting Aaron Rodgers for free.
No, I never assumed that he was getting Aaron Rodgers for free, but I think it is important for people to know that if somebody is appearing regularly on a broadcast with a tremendous amount of reach, that it's important for people to know that that person is getting paid handsomely for their appearance. And some people, that's not going to change their minds at all. But I watch Pat McAfee, and he's not stupid. Pat's not stupid. he knows that the more and more outlandish and outrageous things he says and talks about and brings up on his show, the more and more reach and clicks and downloads he's going to get. We are all in the clicks and downloads business, right? So he pays Aaron Rodgers a lot of money because it's interesting to have Aaron on and be one of the exclusive shows that gets Aaron on. But I've watched the way their content and their interaction has gotten more and more outlandish every single time Aaron comes on. And I'm just like, oh, okay, so they're just doing what YouTubers do. You start at kind of a normal 3 out of 10 sort of level, and then the next time you have him on, it's got to be a 3.5, and then a 4, and then it's got to be a 5. Oh, what is Aaron going to say this time? How is Pat going to interact with him this time? And it just keeps stacking on top of each other. And it's gotten to the point where, like, man, if you paid me $1 million, I would say just about anything. And it's not like Aaron needs the $1 million, but still, people should know that he's getting paid handsomely to go on that show.
And I would argue that the exclusive that Pat McAfee got with Aaron Rodgers is one of the biggest reasons he's exploded in the way he has. He had an exclusive that everyone wanted and no one was able to get.
He had it at exactly the right time.
And it is interesting, folks. The one guest that we have that I'm like, man, we're lucky to have him weekly without paying. And it probably won't last forever, but it's lasting right now, and I'm going to take it, and that's Josh Pate. Diesel, when I was in Tampa, we had Ian Rappaport on every single week. That was a paid guest. We had 1 or 2 other paid guests a week. I think Tim Brando was one for a while.
Oh, I love having Tim Brando.
Yeah, and the weekly fee for these guys was between like $50 and $100. Okay, we have Odyssey insiders that we can email Odyssey and ask, can we have one of their insiders on? Those guys get paid a fee every single time they come on to be an insider, right? So I know this is a shock to fans today. Oh, he's being paid. Well, of course he's being paid. Aaron Rodgers is not going to come on a show every week for free. But what I'm more interested in the investment Pat McAfee made. Boy, did that pay off.
Yeah.
I mean, that paid off 30-fold for him.
He didn't get famous because of his stupid, wife beater T-shirts. He got famous because he's paying Aaron Rodgers $1 million to come on his show.
Next up.
2.
At number 2, Diesel and I disagree on this. Diesel says, what was the phrase you used yesterday, Diesel? On the postseason format thing, you are stacking the deck. Stacking the deck, yes. Was the phrase you used.
You were attempting to stack the deck.
I admire that Snitker of the Braves says, hey, the postseason format didn't bother the Astros. I admire that Strider, Clemson player, right? I admire greatly that Spencer Strider said the people trying to use the playoff format to make an excuse for the results they don't like are not confronting the real issue. You're in control of your focus, your competitiveness, your energy. If having 5 days off means you can't make the adjustment, you have nobody to blame but yourself. I really admire the accountability that those guys are taking, and that's going to help the Braves. At the same time, folks, I'm a results-oriented guy, okay? That's who I am, all right? And the reality is the underdogs have won 13 out of 22 games in these playoffs so far. That's 59%. Why is that? Why are 3 out of 4 teams going home? And why is this not the first year that that's happened? Is it just because baseball is random? Is it because these teams were so dominant they haven't played meaningful baseball in a really long time? Or is it that when you play a sport every day and suddenly you take 5 days off, it hurts? The reality is, folks, I do think baseball would be wise to look at making a change here, because you don't want a conference championship in the NBA, Diesel, that doesn't feature Milwaukee, Boston, Golden State, and the Lakers, or 3 out of those 4 teams. And the randomization of this is just creating some wacky dynamics.
Do you remember Jeff Goldblum's character in the movie Jurassic Park?
Of course.
What did he study for a living? Chaos. He studied chaos. He was a chaos theoreticist. And the whole point of chaos theory is you can't predict what's going to happen. You can try to stack the deck, which is exactly what the doctors and the scientists at Jurassic Park tried to do. They tried to make sure that all the dinosaurs were going to be girls and they couldn't mate. And then chaos happened. And life finds a way. So you can try to tinker with the playoff system to achieve the result that you want to achieve. But chaos will always find a way. No matter what you do. No matter what you do, chaos will always find a way. A team that's not supposed to win will win. A team that's supposed to win will lose. Life finds a way, Mark. You can't tinker with it to get the result that you want.
I hear you. However, it's the rate of chaos that is happening that I think is the issue. And that is something that baseball could look into. And finally,
1.
Steve Smith and Jerry Jeudy have a beef. What is going on here? So for starters, well, why don't I let Steve Smith tell you himself?
A short while ago, Broncos wide receiver Jerry Jeudy was walking by, and Steve called out to him, and he got a different reaction.
I called out to him because on my podcast, Cut To It, I just talked about guys that maybe have not showed up in a way or in a manner. And so the word that I've used to describe him in the past was a jag, just a guy. Just a guy. And so when I saw him, he's playing well. I wanted to say to him face to face, like, hey, I know I said some things in the past I probably shouldn't have, and I'm sorry. That's what I wanted to say to him. His response, Mike Robb and Bucky, was ninja.
Ninja?
Yes, I'm using the word ninja. I'm just using the word ninja. I don't mess with you. And it was a curse word. And so I was like, all right. And then he repeated it. So I'll say it again. I'm sorry that I said you were a jag, just a guy who's an average wide receiver they use a first-round pick on that isn't doing anything. I hope today that you actually show up in a way that you haven't showed up in the last couple of years since they drafted you. So if you ever got a problem with Agent 89, I'm sorry for saying that you're an average wide receiver that they eventually will move on. And when teams call me and asking, should they trade for you, I will say no, don't trade for Jerry Jeudy because he's mentally unable to handle constructive criticism from people who watch specifically, can he be a wide receiver? He could be a wide receiver. He's a tier 3. Go back into the studio. I'm done now. Thank you.
It's a mic drop, if I've ever heard one.
Oh, man.
I mean, it was really just taking the lapel mic off, but still, it was a mic drop.
Wow. And Steve Smith dropping the hammer.
Don't you think that the Carolina Panthers are going to call Steve Smith?
I think they already have. Yeah, I think they already have. What do you think? You cover him. You see him up close. I think the fact that he can't handle constructive criticism is a huge part of this. And I don't know why players think that analysts are only supposed to hey, man, talk about the plays. Talk about the plays themselves. No, man, they're paid to give opinions. The reason Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley are not friends anymore is because Charles Barkley said he was the best player ever, is a terrible owner. And he's being an analyst. And Jordan will not be friends with Sir Charles anymore as a result of that fact. Texter says, Mark, you should listen to Pat McAfee's explanation for why he pays Aaron Rodgers. It's actually a really cool answer. Texter, I don't have that audio, but could you provide that audio to me? Could you just give us a summary? Texter, Mark, all sportscasters will tell you don't win the World Series in April and May. Phillies were playing their best baseball in September. Well, I mean, that's obvious. That's obvious, Texter, but I would ask you why. Why were they? Why is this happening over and over and over again, not just in that series, but throughout baseball? Texter says, which came first for McAfee, his show or being an announcer for WWE? I second Diesel sending Pat back to obscurity from celebrity. We asked that to you guys a week ago.
Hey, I banished him, and many of you brought him back. I told you that I like his hype on College Game Day. I'm just not a fan of the format of his show. because I don't like to be yelled at first thing in the morning. I don't like all of the hype and the in your face first thing in the morning. We got enough people yelling at each other in this world. I don't need Pat McAfee yelling first thing in the morning. That's why I don't watch Stephen A. Smith. That's why I don't watch Skip Bayless. Just give me old school Sports Center where you show me the damn highlights, would you? That's all I want.
Mark, here's a format for baseball that would work. Top division winner plays the lowest wild card. 3-game series at home. Next highest division winner plays second highest wild card. Last place division winner plays highest wild card, all at home. Okay, so you have 1 versus 6, 2 versus 5, 3 versus 4. But then you have 3 winners, JT. You didn't think about the second round. What happens in round 2? You didn't think that far ahead, my friend. All right. Coming up next, we will go over the hottest storylines coming up this weekend in college football. That, my friends, is next. And this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Thank you, guys. Again, as always, Dan B, SC Country Trade, Dylan, scrolling back, man. You guys were on it today. We really, really appreciate that. Hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Good luck on your upset picks, and maybe you can move up the standings. I just want to get on the board. That's all I want. That's all I want is to get on the damn board. I've had 2 awful seasons at this contest in a row. Thanks for watching this week. You're on the road, Tuesday of next week with Ingles? Is that right? So we will not have a live show on the stream on Tuesday, but Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we will be on the stream. Is that correct?
I have a medical procedure next Wednesday.
Okay.
So Monday, Thursday, and Friday.
Got it. Okay. Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Make sure that you pass this along to more people. Just, all the usual stuff. Thanks for being here.